Chaos. A gaping pit waiting to swallow us all.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder. Many who try to climb it fail, and never get to try again. The fall breaks them. And some are given a chance to climb, but they refuse. They cling to the realm, or the gods, or love, illusions. Only the ladder is real. The climb is all there is.
Checkmate. What's good, everybody? My name is Neil K. Marcellus. Welcome to another episode of the Chronicles of Gameology. Nevertheless, I'm sure parked on the tip of your tongue is the questions. How is self-esteem, especially low self-esteem, and chaos, how do they gel together? The questions, when you drill down and get to the bare bones, most likely will be phrased this way. Why does having low self-esteem makes an individual unqualified to utilize a tool such as chaos? Which then leads to question number 2. How is chaos used to bring about success and favorable outcomes? Now, consider this. Self-esteem is a subcomponent of your ego. One of the things that is discouraged in the status quo, or as we say from a street perspective in the square world, is the developing of one's ego. You are looked upon as being egotistical. Better yet, the ego is one of 3 vital and massive components that makes up your overall constitution. As you already should be familiar with, here on the Chronicles of Gameology, I use the concept of chess to elaborate on the concept of game, because the wisdom tradition is inserted into the game of chess, because an early version of chess stretches all the way back to the 3rd dynasty in ancient Kemet. We're talking about 2650 BC. Back to the concept of chess. Chess has 3 phases to it, if you're familiar with the game. First phase is the opening. Second phase is the middle. Third phase is the end game. Each phase has particular tactics and strategies that you implement in order to bring about successfully putting the king in check in the game of chess. When it comes to developing your constitution on being a thorough gameologist, it takes 3 components, or it goes through 3 phases as well. These 3 phases is developing of your ego, that's phase 1, developing of your instinct, that's phase 2, and developing of the component that is immortal inside of you. Oh yeah, we are just basically scratched the surface. One thing you will come to realize by continuing watching this channel is that the concept of game is multidimensional and multifaceted, having many constants and variables that make up its wisdom tradition. Like I said before, game is not geared towards any silly pickup lines or any PUA type BS. But hold on, it gets better. Each phase I just mentioned pertaining to your constitution, your ego, your instinctual nature, your immortal self, has 4 dramatics that facilitates its development. Going back to the concept or drawing the analogy from chess in order to enhance your game. When you look at the pieces on the chessboard, excluding the pawns, there are 6 on each side, making up 12. It's no coincidence that the 4 dramatics that supports each component of your constitution makes up the number 12 as well. By dramatics, it is meant to be understood as your spectrum of experiences. Now, peep game. Game will always give you the test first and the lesson second. Whereas, in the square world and the status quo, you are just required just to memorize answers, teaching you what to think, programming you basically. The lesson gives you your experiences. And this is where the power and the persuasiveness comes from. Because skill is what you are capable of doing. Being front sight focused determines what you do, and experience determines how well you do it. Swinging back to this concept of your self-esteem, which is housed within your ego, which I alluded to earlier in this video. In order to increase its volume, one must pay attention to the criteria by which one measures their performance by. Basically, what are you using to compare yourself to? Because it's like a reactor core in a nuclear power plant. It is the source of your vitality and optimism, which powers your persona, which is the first greeter of your environment and sets the tone on how you to be perceived by others in a negative or positive light. Lastly, let me address this concept of chaos and its application. Answering the second question I proposed at the beginning of this video. Commonly, chaos is understood typically as something messy, conflicted, random, or just without order. Peep game. Chaos is not untidy, it is pre-tidy. Chaos is the unformed force from which form comes into physical representation. As an illustration of how chaos is used by a skilled tactician, I'm going to share with you a story from one of the greatest generals to be ever spoken of. He was an African general in the year 247 BC by the name of Hannibal Barca. His tactics is still being studied at our war colleges today. At this particular time in history, Hannibal was waging war upon Rome. And at this particular time, Hannibal found himself on a mountain surrounded by a much larger Roman force. In the dead of night, if I might add. Hannibal had his men tie torches to the horns of cattle and stampeded them down the side of this mountain. Not anticipating this large contingent of trouble, the Romans, seeing this large force coming at them, they fled. And Hannibal was able to take his force and escape. Checkmate. Just like that clip at the beginning of this video said, chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder. But here is the clincher on how to utilize it. It comes down to being passionate at cause versus feeling at effect. What I mean by that, when you passionate at cause, you initiate things from the start. But when you're feeling at effect, you sitting around waiting for things to happen. And this is not to be disparaging when it comes to feelings. If you don't have feelings, you can't be a gameologist. When you passionate at cause, your game expands. Whereas when you feel at effect, your game stagnates. Self-pity is the residue of low self-esteem. You cannot apply the concept of game and be in self-pity, because to feel self-pity is to feel at effect instead of being passionate at cause. In conclusion, there's a price to pay in order to utilize chaos. All gameologists pay one admission to step on the chessboard of life. All spectators, they constantly come back and forth and pay every damn time. But I digress. To be eligible to use chaos, one is likened to a lone wanderer in a world full of those who are switched off and oblivious to their own value. It means to walk alone among the blind, to be a lone wolf among sheep, who is unwilling to march to the beat of their own damn drum. Checkmate. Catch you on the next episode.